ALIYAH, the King's Game Rulebook, a 3-player strategy game for ages 7 and up. The game's contents are 3 red, blue and yellow vessels, 3 red, blue and yellow spheres, 1 cornerstone and a game board. The object of the game is to gather the 3 festival spheres with your vessels and then align them in a straight line across Jerusalem. The player that achieves that goal declares ALIYAH and wins the game. Let's set up the game. Place the red empty vessels on the 3 zones where lines intersect, opposite the lamb, and place the red festival spheres on the slot in front of the lamb. Place the blue empty vessels on the 3 zones opposite the tablets, and place the blue festival spheres on the slot in front of the tablets. Place the empty yellow vessels on the 3 zones opposite the branches, and the yellow festival spheres on the slot in front of the branches. Lastly, place the cornerstone next to the game board in front of the player, controlling the red vessels. This will indicate the first player to move, and turns will continue clockwise. The 3 zones near the spheres are the festival zones. The center is the Jerusalem zone. These 4 zones are unoccupied at the start of the game. Player's turn and vessel movement. During a turn, the player must move one of the 3 vessels onto an unoccupied zone. A zone is a point on the game board where lines intersect. Jerusalem is the special center zone, and it needs no lines because it is connected to all the zones on the game board. A vessel can only be moved to a zone connected by a line to the zone the vessel is moving from, unless the vessel is moving onto or out of Jerusalem, where no line is needed. A vessel cannot skip over an empty zone. After a vessel has been moved, a player must pass the cornerstone to the next player on the left. Players are not allowed to hint moves to other players. If a player has a vessel occupying a festival zone at the beginning of a turn, the player may move that vessel around the festival circle to any other unoccupied festival zone as their move. Jerusalem is the special center zone. It needs no connecting lines because, as it is said, all roads lead to Jerusalem. For this reason, a player may move any of the 3 vessels onto Jerusalem from any zone on the game board as long as Jerusalem is unoccupied. Likewise, a player may move their vessel out of Jerusalem onto any unoccupied zone on the game board during the player's turn. Gathering festival spheres. When a player moves a vessel onto a festival zone, the player may place that festival sphere on any of his empty vessels, turning it into a witness vessel. When a player moves a vessel onto the festival zone that matches the player's vessel's color, the empty vessel upon which the player chooses to place that festival sphere becomes a king vessel. A player can only obtain 1 festival sphere from each festival zone. When all the festival spheres are collected, a player will have 2 witness vessels and 1 king vessel. Witness vessel. A witness vessel outranks an empty vessel, so a player may use it to jump over 1 or 2 empty vessels as long as it is done in a straight line onto an unoccupied zone. That includes a jump over an empty vessel occupying Jerusalem, as long as the jump is done in a straight line onto an unoccupied zone on the other side. A player may use a witness vessel to jump over one or two of the player's own empty vessels. A player cannot use a witness vessel to jump over another witness or king vessel. A witness vessel cannot jump over an empty vessel around a corner. All jumps must be done in a straight line. A witness vessel cannot skip over an unoccupied zone. A player may jump onto a festival zone with a witness vessel and gather that festival sphere for any of the player's other empty vessels. A king vessel outranks both empty and witness vessels. In addition to normal vessel movement, a king vessel may continue jumping in straight lines over any vessel or vessels it outranks, as long as another straight line jump is possible at the end of each jump. A player may jump onto a festival zone with a king vessel to gather a festival sphere for any one of that player's other empty vessels, then continue jumping back to a previous zone, including the zone from which the king vessel began jumping. This move is called a king's gift. A king vessel cannot skip over an unoccupied zone, jump over a vessel around a corner, or jump over another king. Trapped vessels. If all of a player's vessels become trapped, that player must lose a turn. If any of that player's vessels have a festival sphere, the trapped player must remove one and return it to its original festival slot. The cornerstone. A player must have the cornerstone in order to move. At the end of a turn, a player must place the cornerstone in front of the player to the left. Before passing the cornerstone, the player may choose a different move, but once the cornerstone has been passed and the player has let go of it, the player's turn is over. Setting the cornerstone. When a player has a winning move, first, the player must set the cornerstone on the zone on which the vessel making the winning move will land. The player then places that vessel on top of the cornerstone, declares ALIYAH, and wins the game. Casting lots for vessel color choice. Place one festival sphere from each festival in the small ALIYAH pouch. Have each player reach into the pouch and take a sphere without looking. The color of the sphere each player draws determines the color of the player's vessels. The player with the red vessels has the first move in the game. Here is an example of a clever winning move with a king vessel. The player controlling the red vessels has them as follows. The king vessel is on the top right home zone, an empty vessel is on Jerusalem, and a witness vessel is on the tablet's festival zone at the bottom left. The player takes the king vessel and jumps over two vessels, which it outranks onto the unoccupied home zone. Then, the player jumps with the king over the player's own empty vessel in Jerusalem onto the unoccupied branch's festival zone at the top. The player takes the yellow festival sphere and places it on the empty vessel occupying Jerusalem, performing a king's gift. Then, the player sets the cornerstone on the home zone from which the king vessel began jumping and backtracks the king vessel's jumps, placing it on top of the cornerstone. Having done that, the player declares ALIYAH and wins the game. Thank you for going through ALIYAH, the King's Game Rule Book with me.